Hello and welcome to another audio analysis. In today's video we're looking at the track Love from the Other Side, which is the first single to be released from Fall Out Boy's upcoming album So Much for Stardust. This will be the band's 8th studio album. They've been quite quiet since the release of 2018's Mania, which was certainly a very divisive album amongst fans, and it certainly didn't feel like some of the strongest work the band have released over their career. The band seem to be moving more and more towards these electronic elements, almost trying very desperately to stay in the spotlight by keeping up with what music was popular at the time, rather than creating their own music. And Mania definitely felt like the point where the band did start to crack a little bit, because the album just never felt like it was coming together. So with this being their first track released in 5 years outside of collaborations, I'm really going to be interested to see exactly how this is going to sound, whether they're going to be sticking with that style they had with Mania, or whether they're going to be moving towards a slightly different sound and continuing to evolve as a band. So will this track see them reaching the other side, or will they simply be stuck in place? Let's take a look at exactly how it sounds.
Grandpa, read me a bedtime story.
What?
A bedtime story. The one about that band?
They certainly do love to do
It
some
was
very
an especially
interesting
cold
music
winter
videos.
in Antarctica, and a wizard had transformed Joe into a large raccoon.
Grandpa, that's not it.
I'll go get the book.
Okay, that's interesting. They've actually got some parodies on names of iconic bands from the 2000s on some of those titles.
Let's see here. Once upon a time, in a little village called Winnetka, there was a band called Fall Out Boy.
I'm already quite curious to see if this is going to be a bit of a story of the history of the band. Usually you see, I know it's only being shown through the music video at the moment, there's not actually any music. Quite interesting to see how usually you books to tell tales, so straight away I'm kind of getting a possible thought this is going to be a bit of a reflection of the band's past. I mean, even the title Love from the Other Side does maybe suggest that they just haven't been enjoying the music they've been creating over recent years, and they loved that other side of music they did in the early parts of their career.
All they ever dreamed about was seeing the magical world outside of their little town. But the wicked mayor hated their music.
So one of the things that could be quite interesting that we've learned just from the music video here is the idea of the mayor not liking their music. Most of their albums have been either very mixed or have had good reviews but never great reviews, because Fall Out Boy are a band that are very well known for writing extremely strong singles. They've always done it throughout their entire career. What the problem with most of their music is, they do often lack in filling out albums with that same quality of sound. So I think the mayor is the critics that kind of didn't like the way that they constructed a lot of their albums. Even some of their early works such as Infinity on High, whilst they had some really strong tracks on there, they were never able to flesh the album out fully and really get that critical acclaim that the band were looking for. Already this has a very early Fall Out Boy sound. We're going back to the mid to late 2000s for this sound already. They've ditched some of the electronic elements by the looks of things, going straight into focusing more on those rock elements, which is great to see. And whilst I didn't mind some of the work they did on their previous albums, I just don't feel like the electronic music suited them, or those styles suited them, because it was too slow. Using electronic drums tends to have a much more R&B, much more relaxed, almost styling to it. And Andy Hurley's very good at playing quicker paced songs, and already we're seeing that, just adding that thumping drum already into the track, and the same applies to the rest of the band. They're very good at playing quicker and more exciting and fast-paced songs, so great to see them kind of making that style change just already. One other thing we've got here as well is these almost orchestral elements thrown in just underneath a lot of the other instruments, and it's just ever so subtle. It doesn't need to be over the top, but it's something they did with tracks like Thanks for the Memories. It just really adds a nice backbone to some elements of these songs before the vocals do kick in, and I do like these really strong instrumental intros that they have been known for over their career, and it's great to see them returning to a lot of their little tools that they used early on in their career. Okay, already the lyrics are definitely citing towards this idea of maybe reflection or the earlier sound about not being able to be framed. The band have changed their sound over their career. They have gone from that pop rock into dance, into different things all the time, and they have constantly changed. They've never tried to fit the frame, and they are one of those bands that, despite having hugely popular fan bases and just really played arenas all around the world, they've never been able to really just kind of be the all-encompassing band. And I feel like they're kind of citing that. They know that they're not the best at completely filling the frame. They have parts that are really, really strong, so it goes back to this idea of just them not being able to flesh out albums, never able to fully fill the picture.
You were the sunshine of my lifetime. What would you trade the pain for? The city always hangs a little bit lonely on me loose, like a kid playing pretend in his father's suit. I'll never go, I just want to be invited. Oh, got to give.
Oh, okay, I love that lyric about never wanting to go, but I would never go, but I just want to be invited. That idea of you just want to be included. And I think maybe that's, again, it's a lot of this is tying around the idea of some of their music they've released over their career. They want to be included, they want to be noticed, and they want to be accepted, but often sometimes they don't get the chance to do that because they've been very quickly written off with some of the albums they have released. So this is definitely a bit of a reference to possibly some of their sort of albums they released in about 2010, I think it was. Folie à Deux. That was definitely a very mixed album. That was kind of the signal between them diving away from rock and into more electronic elements on future albums. Okay, again, love from the other side of the apocalypse. They could actually be referencing to coronavirus and the lockdown, global lockdown, how that is the apocalypse and they've kind of reached the other side. I also do feel like they could be referencing to Mania, the fact they've come out the other side of that album, they want to do something fresh, they want to do something new, and it's great to see this refreshing sound. They have definitely gone back to their sort of earlier days, but it doesn't feel like they're overly heavily doing it. It does have a much more mature sound to it compared to some of their earlier releases.
Just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand. Love from the other side of the apocalypse. Yeah, I just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand.
And some of the lyrics here, again, I think it was definitely to focus on this quite a lot because it's definitely the main part of this track. The idea about having a dagger in the hand, this idea of being backstabbed maybe by the music industry, possibly maybe by fans who didn't like Mania, but this track is just screaming reflectiveness on their band's career and the changes they've made over the years. It just really shows that that's coming through in just pretty much every lyric that Patrick Stump is singing about. One other thing I do want to touch on quickly just now is actually the power still of his voice. Even after all these years, he's definitely matured in his ability to control his voice, and he's still able to really just play with a variety in his voice, in his range, and he's able to do it within just a single lyric, which is always great to see. He has always been this very strong frontman, really leading the way for the band, and he's just showing through this track that he has never ever lost any of that ability. Okay, I'm going to keep touching on the lyrics because they are so smart and so well done. Falling in and out of love and tilting. Again, the lyrics are fitting together really nicely. It could almost apply to the idea of vertigo, the idea of you feel like you're going to fall, and they're just falling in and out of love with the music they're writing and recording. They can't ever find a stable, real sound that they are happy with. It could be within the band. Maybe they all have different ideas and they just can't always. Maybe that's the reason there's been such a gap between these albums.
Would you trade the pain for? I'm not sure. Nowhere left for us to go but heaven. A summer falling through our fingers again, and you were the sunshine of my lifetime. What would you trade the pain for? We're told we gotta get ahead, yeah, no matter what it takes. But there's no way off the hamster wheel on this red race.
Okay, more lyrics again, just really referencing this idea, the idea of the rat race, not being able to get off the hamster wheel. The band have been touring for the past 20 years. Maybe it's the point where they are really starting to have to slow down. I mean, obviously we're noticing that Joe Truman isn't in the video. It was obviously announced that he's taking a mental health break, and maybe that's kind of what they're tying in with. I know that has been in the writing process for quite some time, but maybe that's when it was first revealed that he was needing to take a step away. I know he has actually worked on this album, but maybe that's quite reflective as well. Maybe that's shown, obviously, with him not being in the music video and taking a step away from the band, and the band are referencing that on the toll it's taken on them being such a big band over such a long time.
I'll never go. I just want to be invited. Oh, got to give up, get the feeling, don't fade it, sending my love from the other side of the apocalypse. And I just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand. Love from the other side of the apocalypse.
I think a lot of the musicianship on this track is actually quite simple. It is feel a little bit basic, but I like that they're just really sticking with something simple. It's almost like they're testing the waters to see how this track actually does go. They're not doing anything too extravagant. They're just keeping it very melodic and accessible, like they did with a lot of their early music. They like to keep that fast pace, especially on Infinity on High. That was where we saw most of the tracks really go for that melodic sound, and it is just great that I would maybe like to see a bit more flair, but given this is the first track after they've gone back to a previous sound, I think this is definitely just trying to test the waters.
And I just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand. I saw you in a bright clear field, hurricane heat in my head, the kind of pain you feel to get good in the end.
So I like the way they're breaking it down a little bit here, just dropping the levels, again, reintroducing those orchestral elements, adding that softer touch. And although this is another thing that's coming up on the music video, just then we have to go back. It almost feels like maybe they've admitted that they need to go back to their earlier sounding, and they need to kind of move away from those electronic sounds because it just doesn't suit them as a band. And obviously I know that wouldn't come across in the music, but just quite interesting to see how the video definitely seems to tie in with the ideas that we're seeing on the track itself.
Good in the end, inscribed like stone and faded by the rain. Give up what you love, give up what you love before it does you in. Sending my love from the other side of the apocalypse. And I just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand. Love from the other side of the apocalypse. And I just about snapped, don't look back. Every lover's got a little dagger in the hand. My love.
I love this little switch up they're doing at the end. It really feels like this song is reaching a crescendo, and I like that they've just added that slight pace change in the drum patterns to really emphasize that effect. It's really nice and subtle, but it really does show and really come across very well in the track itself.
Sending my love.
Okay, I was actually quite impressed by that. I actually feel it's a very, very interesting track. And there's a few things I really want to touch on about this. Definitely, again, going back to those rock sort of foundations that the band had. They're taking a step back in time to music that suits them much more than the electronic stuff they've been working on Mania did. It definitely feels like the band have hit the end of the road, realised they've taken a wrong turn, and are definitely looking at moving back. A couple of the things I really do like. I like the reintroduction of these orchestral elements. It works so well for them. They don't overuse it, it's very subtle, but it adds such a nice, strong effect. A couple of downsides to this track maybe. I did feel it was a bit simplistic at times. When you've got such strong musicians in your band, they can do much more than what they're doing on this. It is very melodic, it is very simple, but I feel like they could have added a little bit more. Maybe they just didn't want to overlayer it and just really have something that's very steady, because it is a steady track, and it does serve as a good serving for many fans to see that they are possibly returning to that old sound, which for me is certainly very welcome. I really wasn't impressed with Mania, but I'm very, very impressed with this. And the songwriting as well, really, really strong. I like that they're really just tying everything together very, very nicely. A lot of the lyrics do tie into that idea of them not fitting the frame, about these imperfections that the band have had, and really just coming out of the other side and hoping to get some love from it now that they have reached the end of the tunnel, or certainly have come back on themselves and managed to really hopefully come out of the other side of a little bit of a trough that they were in. Given what we have heard from this track though, I'm very excited to see how this album does round out, whether it will be full of that iconic 2000s rock sound or whether they will mix it up. This is only the first single, they will probably be releasing more before the release of the album. But please do let me know your thoughts about this track. Do you think it's Fall Out Boy returning to their glory days, or do you think it's just them trying to relive the past and maybe not living up to that same hype? I would love to know your thoughts, so drop them in the comment section below. Also, don't forget, if you want to see more content like this, then please do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next audio analysis.